when talking about why I love this game so much, I'm often at a loss. I always try to articulate what it is that so grips me about this game, and yet I can't say something that's so encompassing that it really satisfies what I feel. The story? The characters? The raids? Is it the people? All of it is something that I adore. Even the small details, like the ruins of Alag bursting out of the crust in the ground at the bottom of the North Shroud, or the squeaking footsteps of the Namazu, are things that I delight in. I've been a part of this world since A Realm Reborn, and I think that most people would agree that playing this game for such a long time can change you, and I would hope for the better. There's so much to talk about, and so much that I want to say, and I suppose I can start at the beginning, so that's what we'll do. I was a teenager when I started, and I had all of the attitude and angst that went with that, but the behaviors associated with that tended to melt away when you brush up against someone gentle and real. It really makes you think about how silly you're acting in the face of everything else. I started this game as a joke at first. My cousin bought it for me, and with that came a month free subscription, leveling up and making fun of the stupid outfits they give you at the start, but never really interacting with it. The game just didn't really feel fun to me. Then I met a kind girl in Gridania. She showed me the ropes of the game and helped me to unlock armor dying, pointed out where to unlock duties, and more. Eventually I hit level 50, level cap at the time, and was too poor to actually buy any gear for myself. So I got a few friends together and we did Amdapor Keep, my first level 50 dungeon. I was like really scared to run dungeons by myself in the game, which is so weird to think about now, but like back then it was like such a big deal for me that someone would go into a dungeon and help me out even though they didn't really need it. And it's wild. Together, my cousin and her and myself would all do content and just like hang out and talk and just say whatever, but it was like the first real friend that I had in the game, and it felt so real, you know? I don't know why, but for some reason it made me feel like there was context suddenly. Everyone felt like a real person, and the more time that I spent in the world, I just felt like I belonged, and it made me want to play more and find new stuff and get better at the game and try to improve and just be better, you know, overall. Eventually, she decided that she wanted to go to a different server. It really stung at the time, but I understood it. People grow apart and people will leave, and you'll be in a different spot than when you started. That's okay though. You have to grow and remember that you had a good time with them and that everything will be okay. I could hold in my heart what it felt like to have others passionately share what you love, and eventually I found a loving free company. I was already level 50 by the time I had joined, and we started doing extreme primals together. The first one we did was Garuda Extreme, then we did Ultima's Bane, Leviathan, Good King, Mog the 12th, then we did Ifrit, Titan, Ramu, and then Shiva was the last one. Shiva was already out by the time that I had gotten into endgame, so it was pretty late. Most of our friends were DPS, so I had to level up and play warrior, and I was already scared of endgame, and I was terrified of tanking, but you know, you don't really think about it when you have your friends with you. You kind of just feel invincible, like, oh, let's just go do some content, you know, like let's just go kill some bosses, it'll be easy. And well, it never is as hard as you make it out to be in your head, you know? You always think, oh, it's gonna be so difficult, but when you have people there to push you forward and you take things one step at a time, it's a lot more manageable that way. We had done everything laid out before us, and now there was only one thing left to do. We were going to try the Binding Coil of Bahamut, turn 5. What a fun time that was, I'll be honest. I really didn't enjoy the first 4 turns of Coil. I mean, they were fun for what they were, but for what the fights to come next, it just doesn't really compare. Titania
was something else. At the time, at least, it was something completely new, something completely different, and even the way that the boss arena was designed was like a huge factor in the fight. People would abuse the fact that his hand was crooked and you could fit inside one of the ridges on his fingers to cheese the dive bomb mechanic. And that was really something. This was with Echo, of course, and I never got it down without that. But I was still happy to be a part of doing it in the first place because those mechanics still felt pretty difficult to me, at least at the time. After I cleared T5, no one else really cared to do the later floors with me, which was fine. I just had to do them on my own. So we did 5, a few of us did 7, none of them did 9. I did 9 all on my own. Then I did 10 with a few buddies, and I tried to do 11 on my own, but that didn't work out very well. It didn't really matter though, because Heavensward was right around the corner, and we were all more excited about that than we were about finishing all of the old raid tiers. But I would have loved to do those fights back when they were current, because once those fights are gone, you can never experience them the same way ever again. That was okay though, because Heavensward was here. And here we arrive. The game's first expansion. New dungeons, new raids, more story, and new stories between us to tell. As we pass through the gates of Ishgard, seeing that city for the first time is a sight I'll never forget. It's a cold and unforgiving landscape, marred and battered by 1,000 years of perpetual conflict. I was so taken in by the new zones that I'd often just stop in places for hours just to soak in the atmosphere. Our goal was the sky. Until level 60, we did rise, and at the end of it all was Thordan in his Knights 12, fed an endless stream of ether by the sleeping eyes of Nidhogg, and surrounded in a millennia of prayer, he was the strongest antagonist we've yet faced. The level of spectacle was unlike anything we'd ever seen. The way the screen shattered, seeing the eye behind him in the sky, with his knights appearing and leaving to take turns at dealing mechanics. Never before had a fight been this cinematic. Breathtaking was the only thing to describe it. Imagine coming straight from A Realm Reborn to this. It was such a step up in quality. It was just great. It was so good. It's what we wanted. It's what we've been longing for. Heavensward felt like the perfect answer to everything that people wanted, the next step in the story, and the logical conclusion of the evolving mechanics of the game. It felt big. It felt purposeful. It felt powerful. Later into Heavensward, I found a new free company, and I met some really great people. We'd all queue up to do Sephiroth together, and night by night, we'd get just a little bit further in the fight. The mechanics are really enjoyable. I loved pretty much everything about it, and who could forget that phase transition? Cool, right? I was mind blown by this. After we got to final phase, it only took us a few more days to get it down, even though it was just another primal. I was proud to have done my first boss on content. I got my knuckles, and now it was time for the raid tier. And I love this one. I really, really do. Everything felt just right. I love the electronic music, I love the robots, the mechanics were fun, and a bit weird at times. Like A6,
where the whole conceit was that you had to kill 4 robots back to back. Every time someone died, it would take precious time off of your enrage timer, and that was horrible. Fun and cool, but horrible. My first experiences with the raid tier were mostly just pugging, and eventually I was able to get a clear on a Ratfinks Twinkledinks. Then I was able to bullshit my way into a raid group. I kind of felt like I didn't really belong there. I felt like if I was confident enough, then it would be okay, and that I could make it through. And I did! The people I joined up with were pretty nice, and they were mostly just a bunch of older guys. The raid leader was a really cool guy, and he vouched me pretty much just because he liked me and thought I was decent enough. Which was his mistake, because I was terrible. No, we actually did pretty good. And we ended up getting through 5, 6, and completing 7, I think. Shortly after that, I left the raid group, because we were really having trouble getting things down. I felt so bad doing 7 as a monk. Doing those jails was just awful on them though. To be honest, I really should have switched to ninja, but sometimes you just want to play the bad class. It was fun though, and I only saw Brute Justice once before the next raid tier came out, and for Creator, we hit the ground running. This was the first raid tier that I had completed, and oh, I rode that Iridius everywhere. I was really proud of it. My memories of Heavensward were really positive. Heavensward did a lot of experimental things, and a lot of it didn't really work out, but for the stuff that did, remains still as some of the best content in the game. I think this is what most older players remember as their favorite time. Higher highs and lower lows were kind of the MO of this expansion. Expectations were high as the next expansion was announced, that would later come to be known as Stormblood. It was okay. No, I liked it. Stormblood really iterated on most of the best ideas of Heavensward, and dropping most of the terrible ones, which made for a very comfortable expansion. Save for Eureka, there wasn't really anything terrible about it, but there wasn't anything really amazing either. Everything was just there. Just good. And good it was. I enjoyed the raid tier. That was okay. Except for Alphascape. But really my favorite thing about that raid tier, and the whole expansion in general, was the people that I met during it. Those guys have been amazing. We all just had a simple common goal, to show up and kill bosses. Over the course of that tier, and also through doing Ultima, we all became really good friends. Shared laughs together, shared wipes together. We had a real sense of camaraderie, sharing stories after raid about heartbreak, trials and tribulations in the game that we all love so much. Those are invaluable experiences that I'll cherish forever, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.